Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to share the information that Dr. Angie Nastovska has for us regarding problem-based learning. So I'm going to turn it over to her. She wants to do her introduction. Welcome. We're so lucky that she is an adjunct faculty at USU's College of Education.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Let me share my screen. There we go. Put in a slideshow mode. All right. So I am Angie Nastovska, and I am so delighted to be part of your colloquium presentations. And there's a few reasons why. I was telling Linda earlier, I am very excited to first share with you that my background. So I was born and raised in Macedonia. For those of you that don't know, it's Southeast Europe. It's right above Greece. And I'm first generation immigrant in United States. So I came on a student exchange program a few times, a few different states around United States. But then when I came to California, I mean, as you can imagine, it was beautiful. So one degree after another, I flew through a lot of degree, but my focus is I have teaching credentials, I have administrative credential, I have mild, moderate, and severe teaching credential, special education. But my background is in being a dental technician. So in my previous life, while I lived in Macedonia, I completed vocational high school and I became certified dental technician, which I thought I want to be in the medical field. And I actually learned that I didn't. So kudos to all of you for all you do in supporting the field that you are in, because it takes special heart, special character, and special person. And that's not me. So thank you for all you do. I just also wanted to preface your educational journey that whenever you feel overwhelmed, it's too much. And I know that we're all juggling a lot. I am mom of two little boys, happily married. And we constantly play the dance of where is the balance and how to do this. At the end of the day, I just want you to know that everything is a milestone and everything is accomplishable. Just have faith and keep going, and you can achieve the greatest things that you set for yourself as a goal. All right, so without further ado, this is our presentation for today. So I work for IELTS Schools. It's a network of charter schools in California, in Southern California. And we are project-based learning. So today I put in the chat a guided document that you can take notes on. And don't worry, it's only one page and it's a Google Doc. You can change it, adjust it however you want. I just find that some people like focusing on taking notes. It helps them ask questions, wonder about things, and so on. But my focus will be why and how project-based learning keeps the rigor, it's authentic, applicable, and most importantly, it centers on human beings, on the social emotional part. All right, so today we're going to go over why is project-based learning appropriate and responsive to current educational needs, differentiated approach to education, how are projects or play and scenarios designed, how does research support project-based learning, and what role does social emotional learning play in education. So before I begin, if you're watching the recording and if you're here and you're wondering, but my field has nothing to do with education. So here is the mental framework that I want you to adopt. Education is everywhere. You are going through it. If you have a family, you're going through it with your kids, or if you have a spouse, you're constantly educating them or they're educating you. What I want you to think about today and have it on the foreground is, how can I reframe or experience in a different way everything about education or conversations about education. And why is it so? Why is scenario and project-based learning important in the way that we approach what we are learning? But also for you guys, the most important thing is, how do I take what's in the book, in my presentation, in my notes, and how do I find the relevance, the application, the rigor, and the authenticity in the real world in terms of application and making it a long-term skill or applicable knowledge? So we always have to begin with the why. Why project-based learning? Why inquiry-based learning? There is an authenticity in design. And what does that mean? So, you know, back in the days, I mean, I grew up like that, in just sitting rows and desks, and you don't talk until you're asked or raise your hand. Well, project-based learning shook up the system and said, this is not how kids learn. That's route memorization. Versus creating projects allows not only for vexing whatever the book says and the lecture says, but also including kids' voice, people's voice in it, and application. How is it applied? The second aspect is development with rigor and social emotional thinking. So when we're doing or developing education using project-based learning, we're eliminating the factor of single dimension education, which is knowledge. And we're adding multiple dimensions, which allows us to start thinking about, where are we seeing this knowledge and skills? How are they applied? Who are we serving with this education? Are people's interests included in that? Are we differentiating? Are we scaffolding, and how? And the last but not least, it's the variety and plethora of really instructional strategies. With project-based learning, the minimum that you do is actually lecturing, or the way that you receive education is lecturing. And then the maximum percentage of how we learn and how we apply is by involving the participant, or the student in this case, into the learning process and application process. So this was interesting about data. And I'm going to review, give you 60 seconds or a minute to read it. So the reason why I chose this quote is that we live in a data-driven world. Data is constantly indicted, introduced to us, or asked from us, especially with phones, computers, social media. We and students are just used to instantaneous gratification, instant answers. And what project-based learning does, it's kind of pausing all that and helping authentic inquiry to happen, instilling that urge to know, but why are we learning this? But where else can I see this, and how can I apply it? And how does this connect to what I'm learning everywhere else or doing everywhere else? And also giving students the opportunity to develop the soft skills, which I think should be called the hard skills, like agility, adaptability, thinking on a spot, being calm. I was just talking to a neighbor yesterday that works for Kaiser, and she works for the higher up data management, the billing department, claims department, and all that. And it's so interesting. She has to take a test that's 4 hours long every 4 years. And I asked her out of curiosity, I said, what do you find the hardest in taking this test? I'm assuming it's something that you do for your job, so it shouldn't be hard content-wise. And she said, you know what, some of the things are so outdated, number one. And she said, whenever I prep and study, I have to get myself into a mindset of, okay, just for the test and then forget about it. Just for the test and forget about it. So it's a medical field. Would I ever as a human being, want to hear that coming from a nurse, nurse practitioner, doctor, anyone. Just learn for the test and let it go. No, so that is where the importance of project-based learning comes. If it was a different way of testing them every 4 years, when they get scenarios for work, when they're interacting with supervisors or someone else, where they can authentically assess their practical application of what they know, it would make a world of difference. So project-based learning, it's actually a systematic educational method that engages learners in learning essential knowledge and life-enhancing skills through an extended learner-driven, and I will pause over here, learner is another word for a student, but it includes everyone, because in project-based learning, teachers are not teachers, but they're called facilitators. At least the schools where I work for, elite schools, we call them facilitators, because ideally you would facilitate a process rather than just teach. So the 6 A's of project-based learning. So project-based learning is, in best case scenario, 100% authentic. And authentic doesn't mean one of a kind. It just means relevant, applicable to what we're doing. You can see it everywhere around you, and so on. Then it's academically rigorous. So there's a stigma that a lot of people in education say, well, it's not rigorous. Kids seem like they're just building projects and whatever, but it's actually rigorous. So in the medical field, for an example, you take what you're learning about a system like nervous system, cardiovascular system, whatever it is, then the students get to design their own based on the learning, but also presented to professionals in the field, or one of our favorite projects is, we call it diagnose the patient. After they learn about all the possible systems in the body, each student or group of students get scenarios from illnesses and sicknesses. They're supposed to analyze all the symptoms and apply what they have learned and come up with a diagnosis, and do it in front of medical field professionals during something called presentation of learning. So at the end of the project, the medical experts come, they take on the profile, and then the students come to them, and they try to act as doctors and offer diagnosis, and then engage in a conversation with the actual professionals in the field. The next one is applied learning, and we just spoke about that. The project that I was explaining is just everything has to be applicable. Otherwise, it does not create why for what we are learning. Then there is academic exploration. We always use the subjects. The best thing about project-based learning is we don't say, oh, I'm in a math class. Oh, I am in a biology class. When you go to the bank, you don't say, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped math, I can't do banking. Life is not single discipline or single subject. So project-based learning is another way to diminish or eliminate the boundaries between the single subject contained classrooms, because life is inter and cross-disciplinary, and we want to build that mindset for our students. Then we have always adult connection. So thinking about careers, imagine you going through entire schooling, but never, ever stepping a foot or communicating with experts in your field. Imagine you graduating with a degree that you have never stepped a foot in that profession, or interviewed a professional in that field, or had a mentor, supervisor, anyone that's in that field. Do we think everything that we have learned and the degree or the diploma would matter? Absolutely not, because you graduated basically with just knowledge without even knowing how to step outside the lectures and the books. And then assessments. Assessments is a huge thing, because it's not the sit and do the test, rather than what is the scenario, or what is the project, what is the product, outcome, or action that will help me as educator assess whether the kids have not only learned and mastered the skills and knowledge in the subjects, but I can see them, they're applying it. And that's a huge difference from the one time, one snapshot, sit and test for this and check your knowledge. So what is the facilitators or the teachers' role in project-based learning? So instead of just teaching, teacher is teaching, in project-based learning, they have a huge umbrella of expectations and roles. They're designers, they design experiences, they model thinking, problem solving, they're partners in the journey. They manage the structures of the day-to-day, so they're managers. They teach learners to set goals, set milestones, create checklists. So it's all the beautiful things that we do on the day-to-day. So one of our schools, it's called Islet Agua Dulce. It's play-based farm school in Agua Dulce. So as part of their science department, health department, physical education, they have 45 animals and they have annual classes daily. And they also have farm to table. And as you can tell from this picture, we love and adore rain days because they turn into mudslides and playing outside, but they do apply everything that they learn outside. So there's a lot of videos of the experiences. Here is a rain day. And in most of the videos, you're going to see educators engaged with the students as well. So now let's move into some of our examples from the schools where I teach. So I teach for IELTS schools, and I stand for I as a student, but also for international. And then the letters LEAD stand for leadership, entrepreneurial development, arts, and design thinking. Here's an example of one of our project board. So we have all the standards that we base the project on. And then we have a driving question, which is the true north overarching question. And then we have essential questions, which are kind of like mini investigations that the kids answer either weekly or bi-weekly. And let's see, how does that look like at the end? Let me pause, and I don't know if I shared with sound. So let me reshare again and share sound. There we go. Oops. Where did my presentation go? Sorry, technical difficulties.
No worries. It happens to all of us.
Right. Okay. Here we go. Now let's share again. Share sound. There we go. All right. We're back. Slideshow. Okay, let's see what.
To go and live somewhere else away from their parents.
So what's the driving question?
The driving question is how can I use technology to help society thrive?
And what did you come up with?
We came up with a GoFundMe page to donate clothes, socks, and things that people need to survive and live, clothing-wise, for orphans.
I like that.
So as you can see, that was a full math and science-based project. They were learning about environments, ecosystems, and in math, of course, they were learning about calculations, budgeting, and they decided to apply that, but picking and choosing an orphanage and creating the Donors Choose page. So here are another example. So we're talking about the farm to table. Kids, parents, educators, they're all together, everything that they're learning in science about, and it's every grade level really, from plants, seeds, structures, all the way to mycology, really, and then presentation of learning is where they present everything that they have learned. So assessment practices and reflections. In project-based learning, which is also a scenario-based learning in your cases in the medical field, it's very important not to only do the project or complete the scenario. It's very important to pause and assess for the understanding and applications of the things that we do, but also reflect ongoingly. Because as we know, research says metacognition actually happens once we pause to reflect on what has happened or what is happening and then calibrate and move forward. So in order for something to become a long-term useful knowledge, education, or skills, reflection is a big part of project-based learning. And it takes time. Project-based learning is one of the hardest approaches to learning, but it's the most effective. And students actually love it. So presentation of learning, where we get to apply what we have learned, and an opportunity for students to reconnect if they've done it throughout the project, or connect if they've done it to the end. So here, let me. Yeah.
No. What different ways can you help the animals in their habitats?
So of course, this is the little kids, and their parents came for a presentation of learning. It was their habitat project. They adopted an animal from their specific habitat. They were setting all the habitats, and they were supposed to build the most sustainable for them, for the animal habitat, and then convince their parents or the other professionals to build. We had zoologists, we had nature center people, and as you can see, all the adults have prompts and questions when they come, so that they engage the kids in relevant conversations if they don't know what to ask them. Here is again what a full project board looks like. We have the driving questions. How can we help animals in their natural habitat? We have social and emotional learning target. These are the I can statements from their subjects. Sometimes there's a vocabulary list or vocabulary word, and then for all their weekly inquiries, they add their questions. So the students do. Here is an interesting research comparison between project-based learning and what is the impact on the actual learning. So the researcher, John Haiti, researched 5 different spheres, and it's building culture, managing activities, scaffolding student learning, assessing student learning, and engaging and coaching. So there was huge teacher-student relationship, bigger than he has ever seen. And then the one with less impact were classroom cohesion and positive peer influence. Then we had managed activities. What's needed is effective classroom management. Then we had for scaffolding, there was structured classroom discussions, there was cooperative learning, there was peer tutoring, there was direct instruction, learning thinking strategies, and success examples. In terms of assessing student learning, there was usable, which means applicable, formative feedback for students. There were clear and challenging learning goals always. There were teacher competencies, trustworthiness, and caring. These are some of my favorite projects. In 10th grade, when I moved to my administrative position, I am currently the director of curriculum instruction and assessment for all our schools. My one non-negotiable was I cannot stop teaching. I cannot be a director of telling you what to teach and how to teach if I'm not teaching myself. So I kept something called the 10th grade personal project. It's a longitudinal project. Each learner in 10th grade picks and chooses their passion, interest, something that they've always wanted to do. And throughout the scope of a year, independently on their own with a mentor, and then I do the workshops for them. They conduct the project. So these friends here had an idea to design and prototype a nuclear waste launcher because they live in Castaic and we have a huge dump over here, the Chiquita landfill. And they're like, this is it. People are getting diagnosed with cancer. They have all these terminal diseases and illnesses or long-term diseases. We need to figure out a way to do something with waste and toxical waste. So over here, you're going to see they designed a launcher that launches nuclear waste into space. Then over here, as you can see, we have a sustainability project and a kid that's passionate about fish. He designed actually it's a she, it was a girl. She designed a project where she used different types of plants to show people how you can make it aesthetically beautiful, healthy, and sustainable. So this is her fish tank, and she was growing fruits and vegetables here. Another big project that we do is every year our students do go on a field trip in Costa Rica. And every year they do a big project over there. So it's a year-long preparation. It's called Backpacks Full of Hope because they raise money and they create backpacks with whatever the people need. So this year they needed mosquito nets, mosquito repellents, they needed seeds, they needed tons of different things. So whatever is the need for that year, that is their project. And then in June, at the end of the year, they go on the journey. And as you can see, once they get there, they have a couple of community projects. So they were building schooling houses, they were building bathrooms, they were planting, they were cooking, and so on. So this was all application of their health course, math course, and English, because they were doing all the research and they were supposed to come up with a proposal and then see if the proposal is accepted, move on from there. Another great project is we have in some of our schools, we have different career pathways, and one of our pathways, it's called aerospace. And for the aerospace pathway, our kids starting in now from 3rd grade, it used to be middle school, but now we scale it all the way down. They start learning about aerospace concepts. In 8th grade, they actually design their own airplanes, gliders, they interact with pilots. And as you can see over here, their culmination of the project is flying in a glider. And if they stick with the aerospace pathway, by the time they graduate high school at one of the elite schools, they can graduate with a pilot lessons, commercial pilot lessons. This is another great example. It was a personal project. Griffin Locke at 13, he was a cinematographer and he marked the film industry. He was awarded a award and he was only 13. So I thought that was interesting. His passion was film and movie making. And for his personal project, he made 3 shorts horror movies. It was a sequel. So that inspired him that he continued doing that. And when he turned 13, he submitted them to the Santa Clarita Film Office and they announced another year of growth and they awarded him. This is another huge one and it's part of our TK through 12 actually, sciences. So this would be interesting for you guys. Our kids design experiments and send them to the International Space Station. So throughout the years, we have seen all sorts of things from pick and see of peppers, because our little kids in elementary school thought, if I am an astronaut with Hispanic heritage, spices mean to me a lot. I want to know if peppers have the same spiciness or piquancy when they're up on the International Space Stations. Then we have others. This year, our students just came back from Florida from the launch, and they launched bug pills into space to see if it's a potential for growing them there for medical reasons and helping out. Then we had a mushroom group that sent mushrooms into space, obviously, again, to see if they can actually grow and survive there for potential growing and making antibiotics and health-related reasons. But imagine if our education was like that when we were in elementary, middle, and high school. So it's very interesting. We also had a tiny house project where you can see our kids are so little. It was a 3rd grade through high school. The kids worked on designing, blueprinting, getting the city permits, getting everything and they donated to a homeless family. They built a tiny house and they donated to a homeless family. So what is the biggest problem in current education or in life in general? And then what assessments actually stimulate real world situations? So as you know from your own educational system, the real assessments are the ones where you actually see a scenario and apply it to real world rather than, is it A, B, C, or D? What is the correct answer for this blank? The lack of balanced assessment system that actually captures the development of students as people, and the academic rigor in an authentic manner, which is staying away from testing and regurgitation of information. So this was very interesting, and I had to put it over there. The other version of this is the fish and a cat under a tree, and asking the same thing. What tests one show? Like, well, if you measure how fast or which one can climb a tree, then, I mean, who would climb a tree, a cat or a fish? But then it leads to the conversation of, is this the right test for these two alleged kids? And in the bigger picture is that we need to measure what matters, and that tests and assessment needs to capture the depth of a student and really where they thrive as well, rather than just what they don't know. Because it's easy to identify what you do not know, but then what do we do with that information once you don't know something? It's not just go and study for it, but it's what are the causes for it and the root cause analysis. So at iLead, our social emotional balances goes hand in hand. So our learner outcomes are lifelong learner, empathetic citizen, authentic individual, and design thinker. So these are not just posters on our walls. We have an entire system where we incorporate them daily. So the kids reflect on them, they do performance tasks using them, we do activities, read. So as you can see, we have a full website where we have all these resources for our educators for their morning meetings, advisories, and also when they are presenting at the presentations of learning for their projects, they articulate which learner outcome was their focus and how have they grown or have been challenged by trying to be an authentic individual or empathetic citizen. So keeping the social, emotional, or the human-centered education at the heart is really one of the most important things. So how do we do that? Another interesting thing is, and now I want you to think of professional environment. I want you to think of control systems versus personalization, individualization, and making individuals matter. So we have approached the second system where we have built internal structures to help develop healthy human beings rather than just rush them through education. And the way that we do that is we have a full loop where at the beginning of the year, not just students, everyone at ILEAD schools, even principals, even administrators, directors, everyone sets goals. So we sit down for individualized learning plans and we set academic, professional, social, emotional goals, all of that. And these are personalized and they live and breathe with you. So over here, what you can see is we have, instead of conferences, our first thing when the parents are introduced to the school or come to the school is the individualized learning plans conferences. So the parents come and the students share with them the goals that they want to set for themselves. Then the parents add something, and then the teacher is just the facilitator of the process. So throughout the year, we revisit this individualized learning plans to see the progress throughout projects. Kids stop and reflect. And then we go into something called learner-led conferences. So we are setting the goal at the beginning of the year. Mid-year, we pause, and then the students show their parents and the community how have they met the goals or what's the status of the progress. So they show their work, what they're working on, they show their projects, and they go through learner-led conferences. You see, it's not a parent-teacher conference. It's the learners are leading their own conferences. Then at the end of the year, we have learning showcases and portfolio defenses for our seniors. So at the learning showcases, it's celebration of the year. The students talk about their goals that they set, how they progressed, and then did they meet them and how they met them at the end of the year. They show all their work, they talk about their challenges, and they talk about their aspirations for the future. So also, we always help the students set their personal I can statements for everything that they're learning. And we have something called parent universities, because all of these, as you can see, they're all acronyms: ILPs, LLCs, LSs. So we have parent universities once a month at our school that we educate the parents on our systems so that they can be supportive at home. Here's how an ILP looks like. We have all the assessments, and here is how the students set their own goals. And here is the sheet where they put their goals and set up action steps. How will they get there? That's just how we measure the accomplishment of the I can statements data-wise. And then at parent universities, this is our principal. This to our teachers, and then we have parents. So as you can see, it's kind of a small group collaborative initiative rather than for the parents sitting get information night. Now, here's how some of our project planners look like. And as you can see, this is from our Empower Generations program. It's for parent, pregnant, and traumatized teens. So as you can see, I mean, they have been traumatized, their parents, and education for them is already a big trauma. And if you put them in a school bench and just give them books to study or packets, I mean, the odds are those children will just fall out of the system, versus at our school, they do education by planning relevant projects and engaging with their classes that they need to get in order to graduate authentically and in a matter that's relevant to them. So portfolio defenses are the best things ever, especially at Empower Generations, because some of these kids reflect as the first graduate, or their foster kids. They don't even know who their parents are. And they talk about the parenting styles that they have developed, the acceptance towards themselves and towards their children. So it's and also portfolios are a great way to showcase the development of everything that you have done throughout education. All right. We breeze through. So I want to pause, take a deep breath, open up for questions, but I need you to take a break, stretch, open your guided notes document, and tell me if you have any questions or how do you feel about this? And you can ask any questions. You can ask me questions about my journey, my current work, our schools, about project-based learning, about really anything. And I have.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. As far as questions, I don't have any questions at this point. Does anyone else have anything that they're interested in? Oh, I see Logan has her hand up.
Yes.
Yes, hi Angie. Thank you so much.
Hey.
I really loved this. I think I, of course, I'm a little biased because I love the career focused portion embedded into those projects. I had a question mostly in terms of like outcomes. So,
Mhm.
do you see that students who have experienced more project-based learning are more prepared for college and the workforce afterwards? Like, have you
Yes.
researched that or is there data on that?
Yes, actually, we keep track of our graduates. We have alumni collection and we call them on and off. We Zoom them in to tell us. So I will tell you, my last class that I was teaching, and I was teaching high school English for one of our schools when I took on my different role. I have two great examples. Maddie was had two IEPs. One was for attention deficit and one was for emotional disturbance. So this was a child that she has always had accommodations. She has always had, they didn't even know if she's gonna go through the regular graduation path versus like just getting a diploma for high school. Maddie ended up being in Washington, D.C., managing international relations. So when I fast forward and I always have every time that she comes to where I live, she texts me and I take her out to lunch because I'm curious. I mean, of course I don't want to know how is she doing, but in my mind, my first thing that I asked her was, Maddie, like, what happened? What was your experience? She said, oh, Miss Angie, you have no idea. Kids don't know how to work on projects. Kids don't know how to speak for themselves. So the reason why I say absolutely yes, it's because elitist colleges and schools or our kids, and we think you just have to have the knowledge. You have to have like the great miles long resume. Well, when they get in, they flunk the first semester. They don't know how to survive. So that was her answer. She said, if anything, I think my survival and adaptation skills were excellent. That, the college where she went was actually project-based learning, and she was always the group leader. She was always the presenter because no one wanted to present. So absolutely, yes. And the other example is Paige. She went through hell and back in her studies, terrible family affairs, terrible divorces, abuses, all that. And she almost thought that she might need to take time off because parents were fighting. So she would move away and then she would come back. And then we did independent study. Now, Paige lives in Paris and she's in politics too, in Paris, and she's a part-time adjunct at a university too. So, I mean, just evidence speak for themselves. And when I talked to Paige, it was the same thing. For her, it was more so of, if I've learned one thing great how to do is adopt the persona that I need to adopt. And I said, well, can you tell me more about that? And she said, well, Miss Angie, if I need to be relaxed and have a conversational just situation, I know how to do that. But then as soon as I meet with deans and people in politics, I know how to suit up and be the person they need me to be. So it's just, I think, if anything, it gives a lot of experience, a lot of confidence. They're not afraid to approach adults. They're not afraid to be in a working environment, to ask for what they need. And both of them said, oh, I knocked on the counselor's door right away. I told them, you need to take my 504, give me all the things that I need. So I mean, other kids wouldn't. If a counselor does not knock on their door and ask them what they need, they would just fly under the radar and they would give up. And I would be like, another one. Versus, students really engaged in project-based learning and scenario-based learning can advocate for themselves really well. And they build a great rapport with professors. That's what they have said. They build great relationship and great rapport. And it turns out that, professors and professionals open up more and they start trusting. And we know that with that kind of relationship, you would go extra miles for students. I mean, and workers, really. Great question.
Thank you so much. That's great. Yeah, it gets me thinking in terms of, in an online environment, ideas, how to adapt this type of, project base and presenting. I mean, our students in many of our courses are doing presentations in a group project, working together, and, putting more meat behind it is actually, I think, a great idea.
Yes, absolutely. So we
Go
have
ahead, Heather.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Angie, did you want to follow up with that?
I just wanted to say we have two. One, it's called iLead Hybrid, and that's basically homeschool. And then we have one more iLead Online, and they are project-based learning, both of them. And actually, our online staff that has been with us, that has done both, they say, and actually that the relationship that they have started building with the students versus not knowing anyone has become such a soul-filling experience. They're like, because they ask questions, because they ask for live sessions so that they can collaborate or ask questions or check in. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, but yes, it's completely doable. And the project that I was talking about, the patient earlier, we do it once a year with all our homeschool kids. And then we call in professionals from the field as a launching, as an opening event. And then a doctor says, I have Maddie, Sam, and Samantha, and here are their symptoms. Here's how they look like. They keep coming like it has happened to them. They have come to the office for them. And then he says, now you have to go and you have 4 weeks to come back with initial analysis, and then I'll lead you further so that when they meet again with the doctor, he gives them further symptoms. And then at the end, they actually present whether they cure the patient successfully or they needed to ask for second opinion.
Angie, there's so many things to love about what you presented today. And I think the thing that resonates most with me is, it just makes so much sense to teach skills. And if we go back to the root word of educate, it's to bring forth. It's not to learn how to take a good test or to take a test well, right? It's not to memorize a bunch of stuff. It's to bring forth something that is in you that will lead hopefully to a profession that you'll enjoy. And it sounds like through some of these anecdotal stories, people really found who they are and what they're meant to be and do here. I'm curious, given the population, it sounds like it would be quite a task to keep track of these students. How do you guys do that? I'm curious, like, is social media how you're connecting with them, or?
Yeah, so our counselors, it's our counselor job. All our counselors at all schools are rock stars, really. That's, I swear by our counselors. They have a database. We don't call them at risk, we call them at opportunity. Our at opportunity youth, we make them sign a contract before they graduate that they have 3 points of contact that they must contact in a month, because for some of them, we know, like addicts or kids that have been molested, it's so easy to fall back into the circle. So we have a lot of community partners as well for them, that we make sure they must see them either weekly or monthly, so that we make sure that they actually move on healthy rather than go into other ways. For the rest of our schools, we have tons of social media. Yes, 2 of our schools have Facebook page for just seniors, so they all post comments, images. But the main database is spreadsheet with the contacts of all of them and sending them occasional surveys for engagement, like, hey, how are you? We're just checking in on you. We want to know what's happening. Really just 1 or 2 questions. Where are you? What are you doing? And are you happy? Like something like that, just so that we have data. But a lot of them just reach out to us. We have a lot of kids being presenters. Our mycology project, which is huge, the kids grow mushrooms for different purposes. And then the presenter, now it's a grower and seller of medicine, antibiotics, and he works for a biotech company. So every year he presents too. He's actually a son of one of our employees. But yeah, it's not easy. I will not say it's easy. It's just sometimes simple is clear. Just making sure the kids graduate with us having a decent phone number and a decent contact. And I think it's relationship based. The people that you love and you care about, and they actually care about you, you want to connect with them versus, thank goodness I'm done with high school. So it's all about the experience. What experience we'll have will dictate their connection to the school for sure.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to share? This has been wonderful. We so
Thank you.
appreciate your expertise and your experience and sharing all the things that that you've accomplished with your students. So thank you again.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
You as well.
Thank you.